G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Guvs Hero Review videos. Specifically, today's video is featuring the 5-star legendary purple hero, Coaster, the Chainsaw Brute. Now, Coaster is available for summons from the Raiders of the Wasteland Challenge Event portal, which comes around once every 16 or so weeks. It is on a 4-weekly time slot in the calendar, but it rotates with 3 other challenge events. So you've got 4 events, 4 weekly, makes it a 16 weekly occurrence. Coaster himself, he's been around for a while now. He was originally introduced during the OG Raiders event back in April 2020. The family was unchanged until July 2022 when SGG started adding heroes into existing challenge event portals. But then the Raiders got an extra update with an additional hero in July 2023. And that's pretty much the history of it all. The portal itself, we can take a quick look at that. So we can see that there is a 1% chance for a featured event hero and a 0.6% chance for an unfeatured event hero. Now, to put that all into perspective, if you were to do 100 summons in this portal, across those 100 summons, you would have an 80% probability of getting any of the event 5-star heroes. You would have, though, a 63.4% probability of gaining an event featured hero and a 45.2% probability of an unfeatured event hero. To drill down onto the specifics, if you're going after a specific featured hero, it's a 39.4% probability, and for a specific unfeatured event 5-star hero, it's just a 13.9% probability in those 100 summons. Noting that that last number will also drop off if more heroes get added to the portal in the future. Let's take a bit of a flip over and we can take a look at his artwork real quick. So here we can see his artwork. So obviously being the Chainsaw Brute, it would be unfitting if he did not have a chainsaw in his arsenal. And we can see that he's got a big chainsaw in his arsenal. We've got some other protective equipment to help him out with the chainsaw, avoid cutting his knees off and all that kind of thing, as well as a chain holding the chainsaw to his body. I don't really see much use in it beyond maybe he like swings it around his head and he goes kind of thing with it. But either way, that's his artwork. He's got the face mask going on. He's kind of got like a tiny head. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like his head is tiny compared to his body, and it just looks weird. But anyway, that's his artwork. You can actually get the the Coaster avatar from the event. So if we flip across to that real quick, the Coaster avatar is as a result of winning Epic. You can get a hold of it. You can also get a copy of Coaster for winning Epic as well. So anyway, that's his artwork. We'll jump across into the portal and we can take a look at the rest of his card. So he is a member, as is the case with all these heroes, of the Raiders family. So you can see there, that's his bonuses. So being that part of that family, Coaster has a 10% chance to trigger the Radiation Storm effect whenever he casts his special skill. So that will give 285 HP healing to all allies over 3 turns and minus 198 damage, poison damage that is, to all enemies over 3 turns. So there's also a stat bonus you can see at the bottom there, granting a plus 2, 4, 6 or 8% attack bonus if there are 2, 3, 4 or 5 unique Raiders families in the battle. So 2 things to note with that. Number 1, the Radiation Storm does not require multiple heroes. It is inherent to any Raiders hero that you bring along. So Coaster, if he's the only one, you've still got that 10% chance to trigger the Radiation Storm. The second thing to note is that the stat bonus does have to be unique heroes. So it can't be 2 copies of Coaster, it's got to be 2 different heroes, like combining Coaster with Brock or with Perla as 2 different examples. In terms of his personal stats, Coaster comes in with 668 attack, 666 defense, and 1,492 HP. So in terms of a skewing, there's a little bit of a skew going from the attack and defense towards the HP, but it is only minor. It's very, very small in the scheme of things, about 20 points down on each of those. The other thing to note is that he does have a little bit reduced team power or total power compared to some of the more recent heroes added to the game. So specifically, Coaster comes in with 683. The best powered hero is Topaz at 742, so he's a fair step behind that. So all the power is a representation of is their base stats. So more power equals more base stats to distribute. So that's what we call power creep. The newer heroes have got effectively more stats to work with compared to the older ones. His charge speed itself, it's set to 36, which is slow speed and requires 12 tiles to charge. The speed break is at 43 speed, so it needs a +7 speed improvement, which you can actually do relatively easily. There is the +9 Explosion B90, which is a 5-star vanilla weapon, and that'll get you that speed break. Alternatively, you can also get the speed break using the weapon of the month, the Pearl-Scale Convex. That one will give you only a +6 improvement, so you must combine it with the 2% charge generation node located at +19 on his class tree. The double speed break can't occur until speed 50, which is a +14 improvement, and it's just not possible with the weapons that we have in the game at the moment. So realistically, the class node giving 2% speed improvement is of situational benefit. Unless you're going to use a +6 weapon, there is no need to grab it at all. So yeah. On the topic of his class, Coaster is a member of the Warfighter class, which grants him the chance to revive with 1 HP after taking what would normally be fatal damage. The Warfighter talent, it does have a bit of a sordid history. It has been proven to be a bug, admitted to be a bug by SGG, but it also has an ongoing conspiracy theory history that is continuously bugged. Whether that's true or not, that's up to you. I'm not going to weigh in on that debate, but it is a game-changing effect. Generally speaking, I advise putting +1 on Warfighter heroes just to activate that chance for the revival, but not so much in the case of Coaster. Unfortunately, I don't really see him as a valuable hero. I probably advise against leveling him generally, let alone pushing him and starting to put emblems on him. If, however, you are going to put emblems on him, I would suggest following an attack path. The main reason for that is to attempt to improve his damage output. So I'll pull up Sato here. This is what the attack path would look like on a Warfighter class hero. So you can see that the whole way down, I've followed the attack nodes wherever they are possible. When there's no attack nodes, I've gone what's most obvious. But yeah, Warfighter has a bit of an interesting path because there's not great options available the whole way down. There's a number of branches where you actually don't pick up attack at all. But yeah, that would be the path I would follow. Or I would suggest following. Ultimately, I would not advise putting emblems on Coaster at all. But that's the attack path that I would suggest following. Yeah, so obviously stopping at +18 at the absolute most, if not earlier, like I've done with Sato. I've stopped him at +16 because there's no more attack nodes that are of, how should we say, valuable investment. Anyway, cool. So that's the artwork. Sorry, not the artwork. The emblem path. Pause it if you wish. But otherwise, let's jump back across and we can take a look at Coaster's special skill. So his skill is titled Rip and Tear. And at level 10 skill and 36 charge speed, it will deal 390% damage to the target and then apply a bleed ailment, which will do an additional 351 damage over 3 turns. This effect cannot be cleared. And that's it. That's all there is to his skill. It's damage and a bleed ailment. Nothing more. So we'll still take a look at each of those elements. We'll start with the damage, the direct damage component. So as always, damage is relatively straightforward to calculate, but there's a lot of variability in it. So because of that variability, I tend to compare heroes based on their attack power, which is their attack stat, 668, multiplied by the percentage in their skill, 390%, and then normalized against their speed. In the end of the day, it's analogous to their final damage output. More attack power equals more damage. So it works for the comparison's sake. So in the case of Coaster, we can see that he comes out all the way down the bottom there at 217 attack power per tile. It's not great, right? It comes out as being 15 of the 17 purple sniping options. If you were to expand it out to all of the snipers in the game, he comes out as being 60 of the 86 options possible. So he is not a good damage dealer. And most of that is on the back of his unbalanced, like his balanced stats. So he's not got a great or a heftily weighted attack stat, but then he's also got a really slow charge speed. He's coming in at only 12 tiles to charge, which it is unfortunate. Like, you look at it, the other options in there, and he's a far cry from the middle of the pack. Like, the middle of the pack, our 5 and 6, they're at like 299 and 334 attack power per tile. They're 100 points higher than what Coaster is, you know? Comparing him then to the upper echelon, they're reaching 400 attack power per tile. They're almost double what Coaster's kicking out. And it's just unfortunate for Coaster because, as I said, his attack stat is just too low for a sniper, and his speed is absolutely abysmal for the percentage that's listed in his skill. Like, you look at Sure Shot, Sure Shot's the only other purple sniper who comes in with 12 tiles. but she has almost 100 additional attack points to him and 45% additional damage in her skill. So between the two of them, they're enough to jump her almost to 270 attack power per tile, and when she's hitting an armored enemy, Sure Shot's dealing almost 300 attack power per tile. Coaster, who's an event hero, so meant to be better than the vanilla ones, is just straight up worse, which is a bit disappointing for him. Now, admittedly, Coaster's damage is increased by the fact that he's got the bleed, so let's have a look at that real quick now. So the other part of his skill is the bleed. So bleed, the target receives 351 damage over 3 turns. This effect cannot be cleared. So it is a higher than normal quantity of DOT. Standard on a 5-star hero is 309 damage over 3 turns. So 351 over 3 comes out with a slight tick higher per turn. It actually comes out as being 117 damage per turn compared to the 109 that is normal on a DOT 5-star hero. It is nice that it can't be cleared because it means that once you inflict it, you're always going to get the full 3 turns of damage, the full 351. Unfortunately, though, it applies only to a single enemy, so it is of extremely limited impact to the battle as a whole. Particularly when you add to it that his sniping damage isn't great either. It doesn't lend him a huge amount of total team impact value, so to speak. The other thing to say, and there's not really much else to say about this, but I mean, it is an ailment, so despite being unable to cleanse it, you still actually have to put the ailment on the enemy. So if the enemy heroes dodge it, withstand, reflect, resist, any of those things, obviously the damage can't apply. The other thing that I will point out is that it is obviously turn-based damage, so it is subject to enhancement, like you see on Whipster or Mastodon. It's also able to be dampened, like the Zombie family, but it can also be turned into healing, like what we see with Variant Pika or the Mutant family bonus. So overall, I would say that I have always found Coaster to be a bit disappointing. The biggest issue I've always had with him is his speed, and frankly, his damage and his skill just isn't impacting or devastating enough to warrant being so damn slow. To me, the only time a slow hero is really justifiable is if they have a skill which makes a big impact when it is eventually fired. And unfortunately, Coaster just doesn't fit that brief. His direct damage itself is poor. We're talking his attack power, even without speed normalizing it, it's not great. His attack power still isn't even in the top third, not even the top half of the purple snipers available. And that's not without even factoring in his slow speed. And then you look at his bleed. Yes, it's a higher bleed quantity, but it's also still only applying to a single enemy. And that's it. I just don't think Coaster needed to be so slow for how little is in his skill. I think if you wanted to keep his speed the same, you needed to massively ramp his damage output up, either by making him a DOA 3 hero. That would be a really great starting point, make his damage on 3 enemies and his bleed on 3 enemies. Then maybe you could talk about having a slow speed to him, but at the end of the day, I honestly think he needed to go from being a 12 tiles to charge hero. He needs to be an 8. That's where he is for me in terms of his damage impact. He needed to be an 8 tile to charge hero, and he just isn't. So unfortunately, Coaster is as he is, and that just isn't great. So for his grading, I'm going to give Coaster a D+ for War and Raid Attack. As I said, he's not contributing much to your damage output or your team impact, so not really a hero worth bringing along. Similarly, for the War Machines, there's nothing in his skill that makes him a War Machine hero, so a D grade there. And eventing, he's even less of an event hero, so a D- on eventing. On the defense side of things, I'm going to give him a D grade for War and Raid defenses. His speed really necessitates him being put close to the center, but his stats and his skill really make him a terrible tank. So the best, quote-unquote, best spot for him would be flank, but he is still a very poor option to sit in that position as well. In the Bloody Battle sphere, he does get a bit of a tick up, so I'm going to give him a C- for Bloody Battle attack and a D+ for Bloody Battle defense. That's mostly on the back of the bleed ailment being more effective in those tournaments than it is elsewhere because there's less cleansers. In the buff boosters, nothing there. That makes him a buff booster hero, so a D grade for attack and a D grade for defense. And finally, for the charge attack, he does get a substantial speed improvement. You can't deny that, but he's still a subpar hero even at that higher speed. So I'm going to keep him still low, but improved. So I'm going to give him a C+ for charge tournament attack and a C- for charge tournament defense. So overall, that comes out as being a D+ for his overall attack grade and a D+ for his overall defense grade. And that concludes the content for this review of Coaster. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback, so feel free to drop down to the comments section and leave me a note. I try to read and respond as much as possible. If you did enjoy the video and found it to be useful, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel and all of that, but also share it around, because chances are, if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, it's also going to be useful to the people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!